All right, y'all, here's session 14. It's a super quick, fast, and informative session. And based on the time constraints we have, where our stories are due Thursday, 3 days from now, I just wanted to share this with you. And if these principles can apply to your story, great. And if they don't, that's okay. I designed this lesson to be like guided notes, but I'm just going to kind of skip over that for now. And I'd love for you to just like check this out. So basically, what we're looking at is like there's four kind of like archetypes of stories. So an archetype is like a common example. And what I want to do is share those with you and see if any of these connect to your own. So basically, there's seven kind of archetypes of story types. The quest, the journey and return, comedy, tragedy, rags to riches, a rebirth, or an underdog. They go by different names. These names are going to be slightly different than the ones I'm using. If you want to pause on this is really cool. It kind of shows you how oftentimes common stories, whether they're movies or like childhood stories that we've learned, they all kind of have like a similar arc and similar characters in them. So this is a cool example I thought that we looked at that compares everything from Harry Potter to Finding Nemo. So basically, here's the seven stories we're looking at. And I'm going to go one by one and give you a few examples. So the first archetype is overcoming a monster. So this is where like the protagonist or the main character kind of sets out and they have to like overcome some monster, right? Some force that's like working against them. There's a bunch of examples. Here's just a few. Like Little Red Riding Hood is maybe a really good example if you remember that. Of like how there's kind of often an evil force that needs to be overcome. So overcoming the monster is kind of one kind of story type. I either call them an archetype or like a plot type. The next is like a Cinderella story, rags to riches. You can see in the text the poor protagonist acquires things such as power, wealth, or a mate before losing it all and gaining it all back. So literally Cinderella, this is a rags to riches story. Other examples is like Slumdog Millionaire, Man in the Iron Mask, Karate Kid. The next is the quest. So this is where the protagonist sets out on some journey, and it's often revolving around like acquiring an object. So, for example, Indiana Jones is a really good one. The Odyssey, to some extent, like the animated Disney movie Moana is an example where there's like this sacred item that needs to be captured or regained or something like that. And oftentimes the protagonist, like it says in the text, faces obstacles and temptations along the way. Now, commonly confused with the voyage and return, this one doesn't revolve around an object or like securing anything. It really just has to do with like going to another place, oftentimes like a challenging or a mystical or a magical place, and returning back with some experience. So examples of this is everything from Back to the Future to Toy Story to Night at the Museum. So if your story connects to like a voyage, like where you go out into the world to like learn something, to like grapple with something, this might apply to you. Getting to the end, a comedy is usually light and humorous. It has a happy ending. Doesn't mean it can't be dramatic, but oftentimes um, the like circumstances lead to the comedy in the story. So if you're telling like a funny story, you're a comedy. Other example is a tragedy. So this is kind of a sad ending. Oftentimes the major character has like some flaw that leads to their demise. So examples of these is everything from like a classic like The Godfather to like a lot of Shakespeare, like Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet. Like half of Shakespeare is tragedy. Um, Lastly is a rebirth, and this is where during the course of the story, some events occur to basically change the character, and they become a better person in the end. So this is another common story arc that might apply to your story. So that's that. There's also a doc in here with a video. There's a video there that may better explain some of these if you want to like dig down into like the details. And then there's also an article if you want to check this out further. At this stage of the process, like zero in on like the style of story that yours is, and that's the biggest thing. So hope this helps. Session 14, done.